Come. 린포체 마케빠남 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공도 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠남 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공도 패랄쇼 장축 른포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매발양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 른포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠남 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠빠 매빨양 공내 공두 패랄쇼 장축 샘축 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠파 배빨량 공내공두 패랄쇼 장첩샘촉 린포체 마케빠남 깨귤직 깨바냠파 배빨량 공내공두 패랄쇼 장첩샘촉 린포체 마케빠나 깨결직 깨바냠파 배빨량 공내공두 패랄쇼 장축샘촉 린포체 마케빠나 깨귤직 깨바냠파 배빨량 공내공두 패랄쇼
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชชาจารณสัมปันโนสุขโตโลกวิทูอนุตตโรปุริสธรรมสารถิสัทธาเทวมนุษย์สานังพุทโธภะคะวะติสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมสันทิฏฐิโกอากาลิโกเอหิปัสสิโกโอปัญญิโกปัจจัตตังเวทิตามโพวินโยหิติสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆอุ ชุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆยายะปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสามีจิปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆยะทิทังจันตาริปุริสายุคาตาปุริสปุคลาเอสัพพะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆอาหุนายโยปาหุนายโยทักขินายโยอัญชลีการณิโยอนุตตรังปุญญเกตังโลกัสสติอเสวนาจะภารานังปันดิตานันจะเสวนาปุชาจะปุชนิยานังเอตัมมังคารมุตตมังปฏิรูปเทสวาโสจะปุเปจะกตปุญญาตาอัตตสัมมาปณิทิจะเอตัมมังคารมุตตมังสัจจัญจะสิปัญจะวินัยโยจะสุสิกขิโตสุภาสิตาจะยาวาจาเอตัมมะคารมุตตมังมาตาปิตุอุปัฏฐานังปุตตทาราตสังฆโหอนาคุราจะกัมมันตาเอตัมมังคารมุตตมันติ
깊은 번야 바람일 따를 행할 때 오니 공한 것을 비추어 보고 온갖 고통에서 건너느니라 다르자여 세계공과 다르지 않고 공이 색과 다르지 않으며 세계고 공이요 공이고 세계니 수상행식도 그러하니라. 자리자여 모든 법은 공하여 나지도 멸하지도 않으며 더럽지도 깨끗하지도 않으며 늘지도 줄지도 않느니라. 그러므로 공 가운데는 색이 없고 수상행식도 없으며 안입이 설신의도 없고 색성향 및 촉법도 없으며 눈의 경계도 의식의 경계까지도 없고 무명도 무명이 다함까지도 없으며 늙고 죽음도 늙고 죽음이 다함까지도 없고 고집멸도도 없으며 지혜도 어둠도 없느니라. 얻을 것이 없는 까닭에 보살은 반야바람 일다를 의지함으로 마음에 걸림이 없고 걸림이 없으므로 두려움이 없어서 뒤바뀐 헛된 생각을 멀리 떠나 완전한 열반에 들어가며 삼세의 모든 부처님도 반야바람 일다를 의지함으로 최상의 깨달음을 얻느니라. 반야바람 일다는 가장 신비하고 밝은 주문이며 위없는 주문이며 무엇과도 견줄 수 없는 주문이니 온갖 괴로움을 없애고 진실하여 허망하지 않음을 알지니라. 이제 반야바람 일다주를 말하리라. 아제 아제 바라 아제 바라 승아제 모지사바 아제 아제 바라 아제 바라 승아제 모지사바 아제 아제 바라 아제 바라 승아제 모지사바.
Thank you. 어야다 마삼제메 싫어 바르 제 마예멘가 난게모 소소정리 이시신 뜻송자에 염로 차차 대하다 가데 바라 상거된 부디에서 대하다 가데 바라 상거된 부디에서 대하다 가데 바라 상거된 부디에서 年对起我说呢，更新你经你是真是刚也当着了，偏不像那老是，几天当中在我刚到阳当那边，都能那包滚的那种的，年对上就300多节上节经里用的了，超在了。看给等见这我中国我买吧，见买吧，吃吧买吧，当买吧，我买吧，找买吧，他在对面。这把年是现在嘛，作为上节嘛，那么也谈不得了，超在了。
Master Nagarjuna salutes the Buddha for teaching dependent origination, free from all the 8 extremes, and which is peaceful and free from elaborate fabrications. And then homage to the God Dharma, who moved by his compassion towards the sacred Dharma to rid us of misconceived views. So, today again we are on the second day of this Dharma discourse for the Korean Dharma brothers and sisters. So almost all of the Asian continent follow teaching of the Buddha. So these Asian countries include China, Burma, Korea, Thailand, Japan, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Laos, Cambodia, and so forth, and then also Tibet, Mongolia, and then some republics of the Russian Federation. So we are all Buddhists traditionally. So Buddhism is not new to us. So Buddhism is about making transformation within our mind through reason and logic, and therefore it is important as followers of Buddhism that we study Buddhist, the teaching of the Buddha. So traditionally, many of us have not paid much attention to studying the Dharma, but I have been urging people today, since some time ago, that the Buddhists must become 21st century Buddhists, which means that one needs to study the teaching of the Buddha, so that if someone comes to you and say that you are a Buddhist and asks about you about what Buddhism is about, you should be able to explain the teaching of the Buddha on the basis of explaining the basic nature of things at the basis level, and then the path system, and then the resultant stage of enlightenment. And so, with regard to the teaching of the Buddha, we have the first teaching, sermon, in which the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, and and then the 16 characteristics of the Four Noble Truths. And so when we talk about the 3 objects of refuge, the Buddha is not considered the actual refuge, but the actual refuge for us is that of the Dharma jewel. And not only that, within the Dharma, there are those of the teachings, scriptural Dharma, and then the experiential Dharma. And so the actual Dharma is the experience that we develop on the basis of understanding the teachings. And so it is comprised those of the true cessation and true path. And therefore, when we talk about taking refuge without actually understanding what the Dharma jewel means, referring to that of the true cessation, there's not much we can actually talk about the Dharma and taking refuge in it. And therefore, for that true cessation, we need to have gained understanding of the selflessness. And for that, we need also to understand the characteristic features of this or true suffering, which are those of the impermanent suffering, the selfless, and then the empty nature. And then, with regard to the origin of suffering, those of the four characteristics. And so, in order to have a good understanding of the Dharma as such, we need to actually have the understanding mainly of the true cessation and true path. Even if you may not have the actual experience of the Dharma, we need still to develop quite a good degree of understanding of these two, the true path and the true cessation, so that this understanding develops into further insight, penetrative insight, and then it becomes your real experience. So, with regards to interpreting the teaching of the Buddha in relation to selflessness, then there are different philosophical schools, such as Vaibhashikas, Sutrantikas, Chittamatras, and then the Madhyamakas. And so there are these four main schools of philosophy within Buddhist tradition, and then there are sub-schools within each of them. And so this shows that when the Buddha actually checked the different dispositions, mental dispositions of his disciples, and he gave these different teachings. And therefore, when we check the teaching of the Buddha, we can see that the Buddha gave these teachings according to the different dispositions of the disciples. And so, although we have these four philosophical schools, beginning with the Vaibhashikas, the philosophical assertions of Vaibhashikas are undermined through the reasons used by Sutrantikas, and they are in turn, the Sutrantikas are in turn undermined by Chittamatras, and then the Chittamatras are undermined, their philosophical assertions are undermined by the Madhyamakas. And so the Chittamatras have some understanding of what emptiness means, but that understanding of emptiness is called logically kind of undermined by the Madhyamaka philosophical inquiry. And so today we'll go through first the Heart Sutra, the Heart of the Wisdom. And then after that, we'll go through the three principal aspects of the path. So, within the first sermon of the Buddha, there are the teachings on the Four Noble Truths, and then the four the sutras of the Vinaya and so forth. So with regard to the practice of monastic discipline, a code of discipline, we have this practice, an excellent practice of Vinaya in Thailand and Burma and so forth. The monks even go on alms round, begging for food. So this is following the practice of Vinaya. So the monks are recommended to rely on food that is received by begging. So in the Pali tradition, they have a very good practice of Vinaya. And chronologically speaking, the followers of the Pali tradition are the senior or older students of the Buddha. And so those, the followers of the Pali tradition who are in Thailand, Burma, and so forth, they are senior students of the followers of the Buddha. And then with regard to the Sanskrit tradition, we have teachings, mainly those of the perfection of wisdom teachings. And so we need to study these texts, and the most important thing to follow the teaching is through reason and logic. So the Buddha, and therefore there's emphasis on studying logic. And the Buddha himself has said, just as, O monks and scholars, just as gold is tested by burning, rubbing and cutting, likewise you should follow my teaching and then accept it, and not out of your faith or devotion. And then, in the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha gave teaching on the Sandhi Nimochana Sutra, the sutra unraveling the thought or the intention of the Buddha. So from the Madhyamaka point of view, the teaching found in the Sandhi Nimochana Sutra saying that the dependent nature and the imputed nature, the dependent nature and that of the conservative nature have some kind of a defining characteristic of their own, and that of the imputed nature not having defining characteristics of its own, cannot be asserted. Because according to the Chittamatra, who follow this sutra and consider it to be definitive teaching, although the Chittamatras do say that external things do not exist, but that there's no reality in the external phenomena, yet the mind has some essential core existence. So, of course, this can help to reduce one's attachment and passion towards the things that you hold to be externally existent, but still there is some grasping at the mind having some kind of a core existence. Whereas the Madhyamakas now say that just not only that the external phenomena do not have any inherent existence, the mind also has no inherent existence. So the Chittamatras say that external things do not exist, but mind is truly existent. Whereas the Madhyamakas, who do not assert any kind of objective existence, whatever, in any phenomena, say that things are merely designated or imputed. So the external things do exist, and the internal experiences of mind also exist, but they exist by way of designation alone. And things have no inherent or true existence. So today, even quantum physicists talk about things have the disparity between appearance and the reality. So in Buddhist philosophical tradition also, we do have such an understanding that things do not exist the way they appear, but they still that they are empty of any inherent existence, yet they do exist by way of designation. So in the beginning of the Heart of the Wisdom, we find mention that even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. So in Japanese translation, they do not have that word even, because Japanese translation came through Chinese, and therefore, since Chinese translation doesn't also have that word even, I mean, the Japanese doesn't have it. But in Tibetan, we do have this word even. And I actually investigated whether the Sanskrit original has this word or not, and found that the word even is there in the Sanskrit. And so what that word even signifies is that not only the person is empty of any intrinsic existence, but the five psychophysical aggregates of a person, which are the basis of a designation of a person, also do not have any intrinsic existence. So even refers to not only the person, but even the five psychophysical aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. So I wish to say that it would be good to insert this translation, this word, in your translation as well. So it's very important to actually analyze the teachings. So I just happened to have this idea, and so wanted to share it with you. So what is meant by the being empty of intrinsic existence? Anything, internal or external phenomena, of course, each of them must have their own identity or nature. For example, when we talk about valid cognition and non-valid cognitions, so in the study of logic, we do talk about some object having some kind of self-defining characteristics, which becomes an object of a valid cognition. So those of the Sutrantikas and the Chittamatras do assert some kind of a self-defining characteristic in objects. But Chittamatras do say still that things do not exist the way they appear to us. Although they do appear as if they exist externally, as external objects, yet the existence of those the things that appear to be external, and are there as long as there is a perception which sees them. But these objects, which are objects of the perception, are mere reflections of the imprints or the manifestation of the imprints of the objects that are left on our mind stream. And because of that, those imprints, the things appear to us. And then, so the Chittamatras deny any externality in things, whereas the mind exists truly. But for the Madhyamakas, those of the Savatantrika Madhyamakas, though they deny any true existence in things, independent existence in things, yet they still assert some form of objective existence in things that are external to us. So the highest philosophical school, called Prasangikas, So masters like Nagarjuna, who wrote the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, the fundamental verses of the middle way, and Master Buddha Palitha, who has written his commentary, Buddha Palitha commentary on that text, says that if things were to have any essential existence in and of themselves, then what need is there for dependent designation? So these Madhyamakas, the Prasangikas, say that things exist only by way of imputation or designation with our conceptions, but they do not have any true or inherent existence in and of themselves. Whereas the Savatantaka Madhyamakas do assert some form of objective existence in things, the Prasangikas say that if things were to exist, if things exist the way they appear to us, then that means that things either can exist from their own side, so since they do not exist from their own side, essentially, therefore, what we can conclude is that things exist by way of designation. And even the name itself, the designation, do not exist truly. So Changyur Rebbe Dorji says that whatever objects there are, the form and so forth, the external things, and also your internal experience, what happens to us is that they do appear to have something that we can point our finger at, but nothing whatever has any essential core existence that we can point our fingers at. So then the text goes through the fourfold emptiness, where it says form is empty, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness too is not other than form. So what do you mean? What is meant by things having no inherent existence, that they are empty of inherent existence? So that the emptiness of inherent existence means that, for example, a form does not have any independent true existence in and of itself. But that doesn't mean that form does not exist as such. But the existence of form is obtained through the coming together of many different factors, and then there is the designation. So because of dependence on many different factors, we have different forms, colors, shape, and so forth of the form, or something, the physical. So the fact that things can come about through as existence, come about through many different factors, therefore they can exist though they lack any inherent existence. So form is empty does not deny the existence of form. It's not a nihilistic idea. But what we have to understand is when we actually look and search for the nature or the identity of a form in the object itself, we can see that the form or any other thing actually can obtain its existence through dependence on its parts. So this is clear. So because of that thing, the form does not have any essential existence, and therefore we can say, it's tenable to say that things like form and so forth exist. So in Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Master Nagarjuna says, as I have quoted before, what arises through dependence is said to be empty. And that is said to be designated, and that is the middle way. So emptiness means that things do not exist the way they appear to us. So as I explained yesterday, this is very important to understand. Because we have this strong kind of a grasping at things as if they have some kind of essential existence in and of themselves. And because of this appearance, we have the exaggerated outlook, seeing something beautiful or ugly as beautiful or ugly from their own side, just as they appear to us. And therefore, when you understand that these features, ugliness or beautiful, do not exist from the way the objects appear to us, it actually helps to reduce this grasping. So in quantum physics also, they do talk about the disparity between appearance and the reality. Although things appear to us to have some kind of objective existence, yet if you actually try to search for the objects, nothing can be found as being this or that. So of course, and the quantum physicists do not talk about mind as such, but they are focused more on the physical objects and matter. So although they do not use the term conventional designation or designation through conventions as such, but they still do say that we can talk about things being existent as in terms of as long as there is an observer, there's an observed object. This is what they can say. So this is very similar to the Chittamatra view as well. So form is empty, emptiness is form. So this comes to talking about the two truths. So the two truths, are they completely separate? No. But the two truths, the conventional and the ultimate truths, are said to be of the same reality, or but conceptually different. So when we talk about, for example, emptiness, emptiness is understood as being a quality or property of things. So without there being something that we can talk about as being empty, we cannot talk about emptiness as such. And so we need a basis, an object which serves as a basis for talking about emptiness. So here, the emptiness that is taught in the Heart Sutra is the emptiness which is something common to the Sutra and Tantra. Of course, there are certain explanations of empty states in Tantra, but they should be understood within their own context. And so here, when the text says the emptiness is, form is empty, emptiness is form, and emptiness is not other than form, and form too is not other than emptiness. This talks about the fourfold emptiness, and the last two phrases, emptiness is not other than form, and form too is not other than emptiness, shows that these two, form and emptiness, are of the same nature yet distinct conceptually. And then it goes on to teach about the emptiness of feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. And then it goes through teaching on the Four Noble Truths, the 12 links being empty. And then it goes on to say, therefore, Shariputra, since bodhisattvas have no attainment, they rely on this perfection of wisdom and abide in it, having no obscuration, etc., through to the talking about the Buddhas of the three times, and so forth. So, although there are meditations to counter certain attachment or lust, and anger through the application of certain antidotes like seeing the repulsive nature of the body and so forth to counter our lust or attachment and so forth, yet they are not the ultimate antidotes to the mental afflictions, to get rid of them completely. So having meditated on emptiness and having gained the direct insight into emptiness, then we also travel along the path to enlightenment. And so the mantra of Heart Sutra, which says Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Swaha, means it refers to treading along the path and reaching that of enlightenment. So Gate, first Gate, refers to the path of accumulation. For the Shravakas, that is when someone has genuinely, developed the genuine sense of wishing to be free from this cycle of existence. That's when the first path, the path of accumulation, starts. For the Bodhisattva path, followers of the Bodhisattva path, when someone has generated that of the genuine Bodhicitta, that's the first path. So here the person becomes determined to attain the enlightenment. And then having established oneself on the path of accumulation, then you go to the next path, which is the path of preparation, or the second Gate refers to that. So here one attains that of experience of emptiness through the meditation, through the power of meditation. And so understanding drawn through meditation is the path of preparation. So within this there are those of the four stages, which are called heat, the peak of the path, and then forbearance and the sublime phenomena or principle. And then the next, having gone through these four stages of the path of preparation, then you next reach the path of seeing, referred by the path of the Paragati. And here, the Paragati means go beyond, meaning that you should go beyond the path of the ordinary beings. then the path of meditation is referred by parasangati, which means they go beyond, perfectly beyond. And so here at the path of meditation level, you of course have already achieved that of their insight, direct insight into emptiness. You familiarize it with it further and develop your path further. And then at the end of your path, what it culminates into is that of enlightenment or Buddhahood, which is referred by Bodhi. And Swaha means establish the foundation. So this mantra shows how you tread along the path to enlightenment. And so the text earlier says, all the Buddhas who abide in the three times attain the full awakening of unexalted perfect enlightenment by relying on the profound perfection of wisdom. And so all the Buddhas of the three times reached that final enlightenment by journeying through this progression, beginning with the path referred by Gati, Paragati, Parasangati. And so what this shows is that we need first to go through the process of learning the path, studying and hearing about the teachings on the path, and then reflect on the meaning of the teachings, and then you gain understanding, insight into the path, and through meditation. So before the mantra, there is this paragraph which says, therefore one should know that the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the unexalted mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, and the mantra that quells suffering, and so forth. So Zoran has finished reading through to the end of the text, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So if we could actually, of course we do recite this sutra, but if we could recite it with understanding of the meaning, it would be very good. And there is also the practice of driving away what so-called evil forces through clapping while having recited this text. And when you say, after saying the mantra, so without really understanding the meaning of this text, it will not be so beneficial trying to, drive away so-called evil forces or ghosts and so forth. But if you can actually practice do this kind of practice of driving away evil forces through understanding, based on understanding of the text, it would be good. The main understanding should be that you are actually, combating against your own grasping at some kind of a true independent existence in things that is within yourself. So the main so-called enemy is within, not outside. So now we go to the next text, the three principal aspects of Pada. So when we recite some text, there is a verse that we say at the end, the Lotsawa, who is learned in all the different fields of learning, and then to Rendawa, whose intelligence is as vast as the space, and then Master Tsongkhapa, who is learned in the complete teaching of the Buddha, I pay homage to these three masters. So Rendawa was known for his understanding of emptiness, especially. So his intelligence is as vast as space. So Master Tsongkhapa was a disciple of Rendawa, and he was born in the Amdo region, northeast Tibet. And from very early on his life, he was taken care of by the Dharma master, Döndu Rinchen, who gave him instructions. So Chögyü Döndu Rinchen took great care of Master Tsongkhapa in his childhood, and then advised him to go to the central part of Tibet to pursue his studies of the teaching of the Buddha. So if you wish to know about the power of his memory in memorizing texts, it is said that so there was a competition of memorizing some text, and within a short period of time, Master Tsongkhapa was said to have memorized a certain number of the folios, the Tibetan-style pecha. And then he went to monastic institutions where there were the study of the Buddhist philosophy and so forth, such as Sangpo Monastery and so forth. And then he became a learned, good scholar. He also taught many disciples. And then later, with the help of Lama Umapa, who was said to have a vision of Manjushri since his childhood, when he was a shepherd, he was said to have a vision of dark complexioned Manjushri. And so Lama Umapa served as a liaison between Master Tsongkhapa and Manjushri and helped pass messages. And then Master Tsongkhapa himself was said to have a vision of Manjushri later. And when he had a vision of Manjushri, he asked some questions on the correct view of emptiness, and Manjushri was said to have given certain instruction to him, and the Master Tsongkhapa said to Manjushri that he found that those instructions very difficult to understand. And then Manjushri advised him to do further practice of purification and accumulation of merit. And so he was advised to go into hermitage. So even after becoming a great scholar and a great teacher, being able to teach many disciples, Master Tsongkhapa was, when he was advised to go into hermitage, so when Master Tsongkhapa related this to his disciples, it was many of his disciples expressed their opinion that if he were to go into hermitage, in solitude, to live in solitude, leaving behind all these disciples, people would actually backbite. And then this was related to Manjushri by Master Tsongkhapa, and Manjushri said, if people backbite at you, then you should practice patience. Whether you would be beneficial to the Dharma and disciples, ultimately, I would know. And so, accordingly, Master Tsongkhapa left his monastery and went into solitude, and did arduously practiced did his practice of purification and accumulation of merit through the offering of mandala and so forth. And so, at some point in his life as a hermit, he was said to have gained insight into the correct view of emptiness. And that night he had a dream in which he saw Master Nagarjuna and his 5 disciples surrounding him, and someone of a dark complexion were actually touched his text, a text on his head. Buddhapalita was the one in the dream who touched his commentary, the Buddhapalita commentary on Master Tsongkhapa's head. And then the next day, Master Tsongkhapa received that text, and he read, as he read this commentary, Buddhapalita commentary, he came to a point and in that commentary through which he was said to have gained insight, deep insight into emptiness. So Master Tsongkhapa, who was greatly learned and also had vision of Manjushri, but still had to undergo this practice, the hardships of doing practice of purification and accumulation of merit, and then finally gained insight into emptiness, the view of emptiness. And not only did he was he someone who practiced Sutra-2, but he also practiced Tantra. Through his practice, as there were some changes in the internal elements, like those of the channels and chakras and bindus and so forth, or with energies, then his concentration also developed further and further, and then he was said to have visions of other deities, like Vajrabhairava and so forth. Wake up sneeze. So, if you wish to know how how learned and in terms of scholarship he was, you can actually read his writings. You can know it from his writings. Although Budin Rinpoche was said to be an omniscient one, having written many commentaries, and I saw a commentary on Bindavithi or something like that, which is a text on the generation stage of Goya Samaja text. When I saw it, I was actually expecting quite a deal of information from it or learn something from it, but there was not much that I found to be impressive as such. And so, whereas Master Tsongkhapa was somebody who actually dealt with the difficult points in the treatises, and so Master Tsongkhapa had many disciples, and one of them was Tsago Ombo Ngawan Thakpa. And Tsago Ombo Ngawan Thakpa was sent by Je Tsongkhapa to become a teacher in Gyalmorong in the eastern part of Tibet. And so from there, Tsago Ombo Ngawan Thakpa sent a letter seeking advice from Je Tsongkhapa. And then in response, Je Tsongkhapa wrote this text, the three principal aspects of the path. So in the Tibetan, there are these three words, Je Zun Lama. So Je refers to someone high, who is much learned in comparison to others, and through that learning he became someone very gentle and peaceful or humble. And then Lama refers to someone who has this intention to serve others through bodhicitta, based, which is cultivated on the basis of compassion and so forth. And so here he says, I shall explain here to the best of my ability the essential points of all the scripture of the conqueror, the path acclaimed by all excellent bodhisattvas, the great gateway for the fortunate ones aspiring for liberation. So he says he's going to give this teaching, a concise teaching. And then those who are not attached to the joys of cyclic existence, who strive to make meaningful this life of leisure and opportunity. And so the goal of our practice is, on the one hand, to have higher rebirth, and then also through that, that of the definite goodness or highest good. And so for the higher rebirth, we need to practice the morality and so forth, and then on the basis of morality, for also for that of liberation or the definite goodness, we need to practice the three trainings: the morality, training of morality, concentration, and wisdom. So verse number 3 shows the reason why we should develop renunciation, or this aspiration to be free from the cycle of existence. And then the next verse, how to develop renunciation. So within that practice, we also need to see the impermanent nature of things. So impermanence here is not just the gross form of impermanence, such as death, but we need to understand the subtle impermanence, which is the moment-to-moment change in things. So this kind of human life is said to be endowed with the 8, the 10 leisurely states, 10 leisures, and then 8 endowments or opportunities. So although we may have been taken taken birth as humans, but this kind of human life with the 10 or 18 leisures and endowments is very rare. So, in terms of practice, we need to see that this is this kind of life with the 18 qualifications is rare to find, and then although it's rare to find, yet it's something that's transient. So we should think of the inevitability of death, and then also the uncertainty when we are going to die, because we actually tend to believe that we would live long. And so we need to turn our mind away from the holding on to this kind of a permanence in life. So by the fourth verse says, by cultivating in mind that this human life is so hard to find, yet has no time to spare, preoccupations with life, this life will cease. And then contemplating repeatedly the truth of karma and karma. So we need to contemplate the infallibility of the workings of our actions, giving rise to their effects. And then the samsaric nature of suffering, that this kind of life that we have is also within this samsaric existence. And preoccupation with this next life will come to cease. As you habituate in this way, and when not even an instant of admiration arises for the prosperities of cyclic existence. So here we need to contemplate what is taught by Master Nagarjuna, that we need to see the shortcomings and disadvantage of our the mental afflictions. And when thought aspiring for liberation arises day and night, at this point true renunciation has arisen. Such renunciation too, if not, it is not sustained by pure awakening mind, bodhicitta, it will not become a cause of the perfect bliss of unexalted enlightenment. Therefore, intelligent ones, O intelligent ones, generate an excellent awakening mind. So this shows the reason for developing bodhicitta. And then the next two verses shows how to develop bodhicitta. So these verses 7 and 8 also can be used in connection with or that of the cultivation of renunciation as well. And so so being swept away by constantly by 4 powerful rivers, bound tightly by with the fetters of karma, most difficult to escape, they are trapped inside the iron mesh of self-grasping. So with this self-grasping, what we do is we hold on to things having some kind of independent objective existence. And then that in turn intensified our grasping as well. And so enveloped from everywhere by the thick mist of ignorance. We take rebirth in cyclic existence, and there's no end, where we are endlessly tormented by the 3 sufferings. By reflecting on all mothers who suffer such conditions, please generate the supreme awakening. So instead of saying all mothers, you should switch it to oneself, and then I should generate the supreme, that of the mind of renunciation. So here, this the text itself touches on or teaches that of the cultivation of bodhicitta on the basis of understanding these cyclic existence and so forth. And then, if you do not have the wisdom realizing, so next comes the cultivation of the wisdom of correct view. So wisdom realizing ultimate nature, even if you gain familiarity with renunciation and awakening, you will not be able to cut the root of samsaric existence. So strive in the means of realizing dependent origination. And so dependent origination is what is emphasized here instead of talking about emptiness or selflessness or anything. So what the realists within the Buddhist tradition use as a reasoning to prove that things have some kind of objective existence, defining characteristics, the Madhyamakas use the same logic, dependent origination, to prove that things have no inherent or objective existence whatsoever. So because things are dependent on other factors, therefore there is nothing which is beyond dependence on things. So by holding on or grasping at something, the childish hold on to things have some kind of objective existence. Yet the wise ones use the same reason to prove that things have no intrinsic or independent existence. And then Master Tsongkhapa, in his praise to the Buddha for teaching dependent origination, pays his salutation or homage to the Buddha for this teaching of dependent nature of things. So the reasoning that the realists use to prove things to have some kind of objective existence is reversed to them, and to prove that things have no independent or objective existence. So when with respect to all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, you see that cause and effect never deceive their laws. And when you have dismantled the focus of objectification, at that point you have entered the path that pleases the Buddhas. And then the next verse also read. And His Holiness is now relating some experience. He was reading a commentary by Master Tsongkhapa on Madhyamaka Avatara, which is called the clear elucidation of the intention. So when I read in that book that a person is merely designated by name, and at that point there was some kind of a lightning bolt striking. I mean, literally, he had that experience of a lightning bolt, like a lightning ball striking at in his heart. And after that, he, wherever he looks or thinks, I mean, I was having this experience that things have no existence from their side. But later, I found that I had found out that and insight into selflessness or emptiness was a gross understanding of selflessness. But after that, when I read a commentary on Mulla Madhyamaka Karika, where it said that things and persons, as long as there is grasping at the psychophysical aggregates, to that extent, there is this grasping at a person or a self of a person. And then reading the commentary on that gave this further insight into emptiness or selflessness, the subtle ones. However, at the same point, without alternation, but at once, So here at once doesn't mean at the same time, but what is means is that dependent origination and emptiness the understandings must complement each other. The instant you see the dependent origination is undeceiving, if the entire object grasping at certitude is dismantled, at that point your analysis of the view has culminated or completed. Furthermore, when appearance dispels the extreme of existence, and when emptiness dispels the extreme of non-existence, so here we can raise the question of whether the object to be negated when demonstrating or proving emptiness appears to our sense perceptions or not. There's a debate within the Madhyamaka school. So if you understand things to be dependent on other factors, well, then you will understand whether the object of negation appears to the sense of perception or not better. So when things are understood to be merely designated, that many factors working together for things to have their identity and so forth, well, if you understand this dependent nature of things, well, then you will understand that of the emptiness better, and that in turn complements the understanding of dependence. And thus, when you have understood as they are the essentials of the three principal aspects of the path, O Son, seek solitude and, enhancing the power of perseverance, swiftly accomplish your ultimate aspiration. And in a letter to Tsakwa Ngawan Thakpa, Rinpoche has said that if you practice this instruction that I have given well, then when I become enlightened, I will share the first nectar of my teaching with you. So this advice was given by the monk Losang Tragpa Pel to Ngawan Thakpa, a leading person of Tsakwa Wempo. So I finished teaching the three principal aspects of the path, and it's exactly 10:30 now. So tomorrow is the third day. I thought of doing the ceremony of bodhicitta. I myself, even when I do some daily yoga practice, first I reflect on bodhicitta, and then I also generate bodhicitta and take bodhisattva numerous times in a day. So when I think along these lines, in order to accomplish one's and others' interests, I should generate bodhicitta. So this really is helpful for me. So when I was in Gyutu Monastery, I saw the Vajrabhairava or Yamantaka Vajrabhairava's Thanka hung somewhere, and Vajrabhairava, of course, I asked the monks jokingly to whom Vajrabhairava shows his wrath. These are dedication verses from the Just as brave Manjushri and Samanthabhadra too realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect examples. I dedicate all these virtues of roots of
똑같이 그러니까 요만치 요 정도 좀 더 오르다 그래서 얼굴을 가리라고 그랬어요. 그러니까 요만치 해서 올려서 똑같이 그 정도 웃으면서 정단이 뭐 웃어야 되죠? 손님 다리 떨려요. 네. 다리 왜 떨려? 떨려서
Please.